Hello gardeners, welcome to the Living Soil Lab. Are you tired of constantly buying worms for your garden or composting needs? What if I told you there's a way to never buy another worm again, and instead, have an endless supply thriving right in your backyard? In this video, I'll show you exactly how to build a self-sustaining worm farm that practically runs itself, producing a continuous stream of nutrient-rich worm castings for free. Every time you purchase a pound of composting worms, you're spending anywhere from $25 to $40 on organisms that could be reproducing themselves at no cost to you. Red wiggler worms, the champions of vermicomposting, can double their population every 60 to 90 days under ideal conditions. This means a single initial investment in worms, combined with the right housing system, creates a perpetual supply that grows exponentially over time. The castings these worms produce are worth their weight in gold, literally selling for $15 to $30 per 5-pound bag at garden centers, yet you'll be generating pounds of this black gold weekly once your system matures. The environmental benefits extend far beyond your wallet. Each week the average household generates several pounds of organic waste destined for landfills, where it decomposes anaerobically, producing methane, a greenhouse gas 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Your worm farm intercepts this waste stream, transforming kitchen scraps into premium soil amendment while eliminating your contribution to landfill methane emissions. The worms process this organic matter through their digestive systems, inoculating it with beneficial microorganisms and enzymes that make nutrients immediately available to plants in forms chemical fertilizers can never match. The foundation of a successful worm farm begins with selecting the right container system, and you probably have suitable materials sitting in your garage or basement right now. Opaque plastic storage bins work exceptionally well, with dimensions around 18 inches wide, 24 inches long, and 12 to 16 inches deep, providing ideal space for a starting population. The key is opacity, as worms are photophobic and will refuse to come to the surface to feed if light penetrates their home. Drill quarter-inch ventilation holes around the upper perimeter of your bin, spacing them every 2 to 3 inches to ensure adequate air exchange without creating drafts that dry out the bedding. You'll want to create a 2-bin system from the start, even though you'll only populate 1 bin initially. This stacked configuration allows for effortless worm and casting separation later. Drill numerous quarter-inch holes across the entire bottom of your top bin, which will eventually allow worms to migrate upward toward fresh food while leaving finished castings below. The bottom bin serves as a collection reservoir for excess moisture and remains solid without drainage holes. Elevate the top bin inside the bottom bin using bricks or blocks of wood, creating a 2 to 3 inch air gap that prevents the bedding from sitting in accumulated liquid. The lid of your system requires thoughtful modification to balance moisture retention with necessary air exchange. Drill the same quarter-inch holes across the lid surface, concentrating them toward the center and leaving the edges relatively solid to prevent rain from entering if you keep your farm outdoors under cover. Some vermicomposters prefer a burlap or landscape fabric layer directly on top of the bedding beneath the lid, which maintains humidity while providing additional darkness and a soft surface worms love to congregate under when feeding. Bedding material makes or breaks your worm farm's success, and honestly, the best bedding comes free from sources you encounter daily. Shredded cardboard and newspaper create ideal base materials, providing carbon structure that holds moisture while maintaining air pockets essential for aerobic decomposition. You should avoid glossy paper or cardboard with heavy printing, since some inks contain compounds harmful to worms. Soak your shredded paper products in water until they're thoroughly saturated, then squeeze out the excess moisture until the material feels like a wrung-out sponge. This pre-moistened bedding should fill your bin to about 2/3 capacity when fluffed, creating a cloud-like substrate that worms can easily navigate. Mix in handfuls of garden soil or finished compost to introduce beneficial microorganisms and provide grit that aids worm digestion. Worms lack teeth and instead use small particles in their gizzard to grind food, so this grit addition is essential for optimal digestion and casting production. If available, add a thin layer of dried, crushed leaves, as the diverse carbon sources create better habitat structure and introduce beneficial fungi that enhance the composting process. The finished bedding should smell earthy and sweet, never sour or putrid, indicating proper moisture balance and aerobic conditions. Temperature considerations really dictate placement of your worm farm, as red wigglers thrive between 55 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit, with optimal reproduction happening around 68 to 73 degrees. Basements, garages, covered porches, or shaded outdoor areas work well, but you want to avoid locations that experience temperature extremes. In cold climates, moving your bins indoors during winter maintains year-round production, while in hot regions, extra shade and moisture management prevents overheating. The remarkable adaptability of red wigglers means they'll survive suboptimal temperatures, but reproduction slows dramatically outside their preferred range. What you feed your worms directly impacts their reproduction rate and the quality of castings they produce. Kitchen scraps form the foundation of worm nutrition, with vegetable peelings, fruit scraps, coffee grounds with filters, crushed eggshells, and tea bags providing diverse nutrients that create complex, beneficial casting chemistry. Chop or blend food scraps into smaller pieces, since this increases surface area for microbial colonization and allows worms to process materials faster. Contrary to popular belief, worms don't directly eat your food scraps, but rather consume the bacteria and fungi that colonize decomposing organic matter. The feeding frequency and quantity requires observation and adjustment based on your population size and activity level. Start conservatively with a half pound of food scraps per pound of worms per week, burying the food beneath bedding in different locations each feeding. This burial prevents fruit flies and odors while encouraging worms to move through their entire habitat. Watch how quickly they process each feeding and gradually increase quantities as the population expands. Underfeeding is impossible, as worms will simply consume their bedding, but overfeeding creates anaerobic conditions, foul odors, and pest problems as excess food rots faster than worms can process it. Certain materials should never enter your worm farm, despite being organic. Meat, dairy, oils, and fatty foods decompose anaerobically, creating terrible odors and attracting rodents and flies. Citrus peels in large quantities can acidify your bin, and while small amounts are acceptable, excessive citrus creates pH imbalances that stress worms. Onions and garlic in moderation won't harm worms, but large quantities can irritate their skin. Avoid anything treated with pesticides, since worms are extremely sensitive to chemical contamination. Pet waste should never be added, as it can harbor pathogens harmful to humans, and you'll be handling these castings regularly. The beauty of a well-designed worm farm reveals itself during harvest, when the two-bin system transforms labor-intensive separation into an effortless migration process. After 3 to 4 months, when the bottom bin fills with dark, crumbly castings and worm activity concentrates in the upper regions, prepare your second bin with fresh bedding following the same process you used initially. Place this new bin directly on top of your established bin, aligning the drainage holes. Begin feeding exclusively in the top bin, burying food scraps in the fresh bedding. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, worms naturally migrate upward through the drainage holes, following the food source into fresh territory. This instinctive behavior means you're not sorting worms from castings manually, but letting them do the work themselves. Once the majority of worms have migrated upward, remove the bottom bin and harvest the finished castings, which should contain minimal worms, aside from a few stragglers and cocoons. These precious castings can be used immediately or stored in breathable bags, remaining biologically active for months when kept moist. The liquid that accumulates in your bottom collection bin, often called worm tea though technically it's leachate, provides concentrated liquid fertilizer perfect for diluting and watering plants. This dark liquid contains soluble nutrients, beneficial microorganisms, and plant growth hormones that stimulate vigorous growth. Dilute this leachate at a ratio of 1 part liquid to 10 parts water for regular applications, or use it full strength as a soil drench for plants needing intensive care. Some vermicomposters create true worm tea by steeping finished castings in aerated water, which brews even more concentrated microbial populations. Even well-managed worm farms occasionally encounter challenges, but understanding the causes makes solutions straightforward. If you notice a strong ammonia smell, you're overfeeding protein-rich materials, or the bin has become too wet, creating anaerobic pockets. Stop feeding temporarily. Add dry, shredded paper or cardboard to absorb excess moisture, and turn the bedding gently to introduce oxygen. If fruit flies appear, you're not burying food scraps deeply enough or adding too much fruit. Freeze fruit scraps before adding them to your bin, as this kills fly eggs, and always cover fresh additions with several inches of bedding. Worm population declines usually stem from environmental stress rather than disease. Check moisture levels by squeezing a handful of bedding. You should get a few drops of liquid but no streaming water. Verify temperature remains within the optimal range, and ensure adequate ventilation prevents carbon dioxide buildup. If you find many dead worms, test pH using a simple soil test kit, as excessive acidity or alkalinity will drive worms away or kill them. Crushed eggshells added regularly help buffer pH, maintaining the slightly acidic to neutral conditions worms prefer. As your worm population explodes, you'll face the delightful problem of excess worms. This is when your initial investment pays dividends, as you can start additional bins, share worms with friends and family, sell them to fellow gardeners, or release excess worms into your established garden beds where they'll continue improving soil structure and fertility. Red wigglers won't survive harsh winters in most climates when released outdoors, but during growing season, they provide localized benefits before temperature extremes reduce their numbers. The transformation your garden experiences once you integrate a continuous supply of worm castings cannot be overstated. Plants develop deeper root systems, more vibrant foliage, improved disease resistance, and enhanced drought tolerance. The microbial diversity in worm castings establishes beneficial relationships with plant roots, creating a living soil food web that cycles nutrients efficiently and suppresses pathogenic organisms. You'll notice reduced fertilizer needs, fewer pest problems, and vegetables with superior flavor and nutritional density compared to those grown with synthetic inputs. Beyond your garden's boundaries, your worm farm contributes to broader environmental regeneration. Each pound of organic waste you divert from landfills represents carbon sequestered in stable humic compounds rather than released as methane. The elimination of chemical fertilizer dependency reduces your contribution to nutrient pollution of waterways, while the biological fertility you're building supports beneficial insect populations, soil biodiversity, and ecosystem health. This small system in your backyard connects you to the fundamental cycles of nature, transforming waste into fertility in an elegant closed loop. The Living Soil Lab exists to empower you with practical knowledge that transforms your relationship with soil, plants, and natural systems. If this guide inspired you to build your own worm farm and break free from buying worms and fertilizers, imagine what other regenerative practices await your discovery. Subscribe to the Living Soil Lab channel to continue learning techniques that build living soil, abundant gardens, and a healthier planet. Share this guide with friends who deserve to experience the joy and productivity of their own self-sustaining worm farm. Together, we're creating a community of gardeners who understand that the most powerful solutions grow from working with nature's wisdom rather than against it.